Alrighty, hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. I am Trekkw2ks, and this is another episode of Week in Crypto, brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto YouTube channel. And so, once again, I, you know what, we're not even going to get into that. Basic idea of this whole segment is I cover the crypto news that happens between the Friday evening and the Sunday evening, and pop it out 08 Monday morning before Stack Brothers and before Bitcoin Zay and King do the live stream at the 10ish hour. And so, as I've been saying for how long now, is that things always tend to happen. Things happen on the weekend. It's just a matter of what are you paying attention to. This weekend, again, I don't know. The last couple of weeks have been kind of interesting how these stories are flowing. But before I get into that, let me just say thank you for the folks who are coming back. Thank you for the folks who are checking out the segment. And thank you for the folks who are leaving the comments. And for when I actually do make it in, when the episodes drop in the morning, who engage with me and say what's up and say hola, hola in the live chat. I appreciate y'all. I know I don't make it all the time. I'm going to work better on getting into the live chat with y'all at the 08 hour. I do appreciate. Just want to say that. Also appreciate the scammers and the folks out there doing their other little funny things too on the whole YouTube side, right? Other thing to note, the Twitter side too is happening too, which I'd be forgetting to mention that it also goes out on the Twitter side at 08. So I probably should also try to catch that side of it too and just throw something in the comments. But nonetheless, I do appreciate everybody, and this is a sign of gratitude for the folks who are still tapping in. I appreciate. So thank you. Now, as I was saying about these stories, I don't know, it's been weird to see how stuff has been going over the last couple of weeks, but considering what's going on this whole last week with the whole SBB thing, this weekend, I mean, it just dominated everything. The contagion of SVB, Signature Bank, and Silvergate just dominated everything. And as you can see, even in this, I'm gonna get into the whole thing with like Elizabeth Warren and stuff, right? What was the thing I just wanted to say, and I totally forgot it just now. Oh, there was one technical story that I did find. I'm gonna get into that one in a minute. Damn. Okay. There was one technical story that I did find. I will get into that in a minute. I don't got too many stories. Like I said, pretty much majority of stuff is dominated by this whole SVB situation. If you don't know, that is Silicon Valley Bank, which is pretty much a big player in the whole venture capital space and small business startup, but they're also global. They're in the top 20 banks in the US, and they hold a pretty big position. So I'm not really going to try to touch on that. I imagine the Stacks Brothers are going to touch on it. I imagine King and Zay is going to touch some stories that's related to it. But I will jump on this one right here with the Senator Elizabeth Warren, aka Pocahontas, aka Dollar Indian, all of that funness, whatever. So she comes out and starts talking about how crypto audits are bad. Basically, she's talking about the whole thing of proof of reserves, right? So one, I don't know who be shoulder tapping her or like how they're explaining the stuff to her. But she comes out and she says stuff that's just like, ma'am, you don't really understand what you're talking about. Now, this isn't me saying that proof of reserves are great audits or anything like that. If you've been paying any attention to us here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network, King, Zay, me, Black Rule, and a couple of the other folks, like we've been saying, the whole proof of reserve thing was not what folks really think it is. There definitely was a way to validate about what was in the custody of a centralized exchange platform, but it doesn't account for also what is going on the off-chain side of the business. It doesn't account for if they move funds around after they take the picture of that snapshot. Like, there was a lot of stuff that was wrong with it. Now, where she comes in is that she's gaslighting the public, as you see in the headline that I had, on how basically the crypto space is affecting the traditional finance space, and part of it is because we have bad audits, or we don't have real audits like the traditional financial space. She's gaslighting and virtual signaling, in my opinion. This is just me. I'm not saying this as financial advice. I'm not saying this as a lawyer. I'm not saying this as a CPA or any of that. It's just, if you've been in the space long enough, you see the talking point patterns, you see the strategies, you see the public sentiment manipulation, and it's usually the same playbook. Here she is playing her part of good cop, bad cop, and at the same time, she's saying stuff that she doesn't really understand, and it's making her look like she's really just a donkey of the century, or a donkey of the day, or a donkey of the week, whatever. She's doing her part. But the other thing that really gets to that, there's this organization that there was an article that came out that was more of a, like, they released their special report that was breaking down like how the inconsistencies of how proof of reserve audits were done, and how there's no uniformity across how the exchanges were doing them, or who they had doing them for them as third parties. Now, the real catcher when King was reading that article was that they was really just saying, hey, you guys are doing audits and you're not using our standards, you're not using our services. And so basically this was about like, hey, you need to start using our services because your audits aren't really up to snuff. So what I'm saying, or what I'm thinking this would probably lead to, in a couple of months, if not within next year, you're going to hear how the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board is going to somehow stick their finger or their hand into the pocket of the crypto space via the centralized exchanges. I can definitely somehow see this, and Elizabeth Warren will probably be the one as the spearhead to push the move to have them to get more oversight into the auditing practices and the auditing practices, and probably getting to work. That's at least my take on it. Doesn't mean it might actually happen, but I could see it happening some way, somehow within that relation. But nonetheless, as I say, she's playing her good cop, bad cop role, and it looks like she's doing it to swing in this particular agency, board, department, whatever, organization, to get more into the crypto space on the regulation side of audits. So, gonna jump onto this next story, which is, all right, so the US Fed announces $25 billion in funding to backstop banks. This is in relation to the whole situation now of the SVB thing. Like I said, the money story was coming out every which way. There's a couple of things that kind of have me at a loss right now. One is they was able to come up with this money and put it into the system in 72 hours. What? And then say, hey, we're not going to need to use it, but we're just going to put it here just in case. So, what is it? Yellen said there's going to be no bailout for SVB. Somebody in one of the chat groups I was in made the point and was like, well, you could have it that the person who buys up the SVB assets, they could apply for the bailout, the bail-in, and they could probably get it. There's a number of different ways this whole situation can play out. I've seen a number of posts about how, like, oh, this is the Black Swan event. And my thing about this being the Black Swan event is this, like, this isn't a crypto thing. This is a traditional bank thing. This is a traditional finance side and business practice thing. The other part that gets me is that all of these Twitter threads and stuff that have been coming out over the last, like, since Thursday, where everybody's like able to connect the dots and stuff now. First off, how is it that everybody can connect the dots that been here, that, like, you're able to connect the dots of the different connections and associations and how the money is moving on the front end and the back end, but it's been the same for decades. Like, SVB Bank is, I think, a 30 or 40-year-old bank. So the stuff was here before this weekend. It was here before this month. It was here before this year. It was here before COVID. But now, all of a sudden, you can connect the dots and figure out how the math wasn't mathing with how they was moving the money around and how they were connecting people. Side note, shout outs to Jameson Lopt and the folks over at Casa Hodl. Why? Because they were one of the first crypto related businesses that got dropped from SVB, or was it Signature? It was one of them, because they wouldn't implement the KYC protocols that they were telling them to do. And so they dropped them because they held on to the whole privacy factor, right? Um that now I bring that up because it also made me wonder how many of the pro AML KYC based platforms are now in a bind because they wanted to keep that bank account so bad that they gave up how they were looking at privacy and things along that nature in order to have that account. And then now here you are. Like, I seen one joint, it was a clip from one of the guys from Y Combinator. They were saying they had at least 1,000 companies that was going to get messed up off of this. And to jump back on Elizabeth Warren, she was talking to what's his name from the Federal Reserve, the chair dude, the other day. And what was it about? It was about the whole, like, him raising the rate and something, and then how it would lead to unemployment. For some reason, she kept saying the number 2 million. Now, I didn't hear the whole entire session. I just know that she kept saying 2 million, and that he said the number, I think, like one time in response to what she said. So now in my mind, this is like, oh, so y'all expect at least 2 million people to be unemployed at some point in the near future. But yet somehow they were able to put 25 billion into a backstop fund in less than 72 hours. I know I'm like connecting different things that might not be directly related, but I'm just saying it's the same pool of folks who are able to do this, who are the same ones we got to trust to regulatorily guide our economy and the financing system. And I don't know, but like, it seems to me like the smartest people in the room: BlockFi, Celsius, Silvergate, Signature, Voyager, what's the one? Sequoia, FTX. The smartest people in the room is the same ones right now that's not looking like the smartest people in the room. I don't know. That's just my ramble on that one right there. I'm going to leave the horse where it is. Now, jumping over to this next story. Again, like, it's one of those, like, the timing for the way these things be coming out. Like, what? So, U.S. Federal Reserve creating specialized team of experts on crypto, according to Vice Chair. So, who's the Vice Chair? Federal Reserve says that the crypto has a potentially transformed the financial system, and the technology requires guardrails. And in his speech at the Peterson Institute for International Economics on Thursday, French Vice Chair Michael Barr says central bank is enhancing its supervision of crypto-related activities as recent events in the industry saw millions of people losing billions of dollars worth of investment. Again, this comes out on the back of what Pocahontas was saying, as well as the whole situation around SVB. But then they're switching the narrative to make it look like it was a crypto issue. And it's like, no, 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 no. It's the folks in the traditional finance who are running models, revenue models and business models that are not fully transparent, where they hold people actually accountable for financing the physical market, which means you get the derivatives, you get the whole leveraging thing. And then you got folks leveraging, like, there's a post that I had did a couple days ago from Caitlin Long, where she was talking about what she started seeing when she started looking as the reaction of how the SEC and a couple of other different organizations came at her for her business when she was, I'm gonna say, being a whistleblower in the FTS situation. Now, she makes a point about how a number of traditional banks were doing a thing of 8xing. And when you look at certain report documents, you can see the thing of where it's an 8x in the document. Like in traditional banking, there's actually a rule for where banks can't just have money sit. They have to push it out into the system, as far as pushing it over into other banks, as far as investing into other banking institutions or other institutions in general. And there's a whole intermingling that goes on the front end, and there's the other part that goes on the back end. The issue comes into when you be leveraging the stuff and then something goes wrong in one part, it automatically ripples over into the other part. That's the contagion part that folks aren't talking about. It's not just how these banks are directly connected to one another. It's about them intermingling funds on the back end and then leveraging stuff. But, no one wants to really talk about that part of it. But this also, I've seen a number of things come out about like this possibly relating to CBDCs and being a way to usher that whole thing in. And that's a whole nother thing onto itself. But anywho, yeah, so this also happened. Other thing to note about how this article is written in the Daily Huddle, it doesn't actually say the timeline of when this would be implemented. He doesn't even, Mr. Vice Chair Barr doesn't even give like, well, where are they going to get these experts from? Is it going to be people who are actually in companies in the space? Is it going to be just academia? Is it going to be just bureaucratic people who have no elections and you're just appointed to the position? Is it going to be actual like senators who actually understand economics? Or is it going to be actual technical people? None of that is said. It was just, hey, we want to let you know we're going to put a special team together so that we can be abreast of the situation of crypto as it develops. If you've been in the space for any amount of time, you know a 24-hour period is like a whirlwind, depending, just like this weekend. 48 hours, 72 hours, it was a whirlwind of things going on. Let alone talking about you might only have a meeting once a quarter. Are you kidding me? And then there's a technical development. So I'm going to segue to this next story, matter of fact, because this actually fits right for the closeout. So this comes out over the weekend. Developers will be free to fork Uniswap v3 protocol after BSL expires on April 1st, which is the business service license. I believe I'm saying that right. The business source license. So Uniswap v3 protocol will be free to fork by developers as open source software on April 1st when the business source license expires. Bam. So, excuse me, unless you're in the technical part of the space, right, because you're doing dev work, this means nothing really to you unless you're also a heavy trader. So either you're a trader or you're the developer side of it. So that's where this comes in. This is definitely going to be heavy for folks who are interested in that. But other than that, it came out while this whole SVB and Silvergate Signature Bank situation happened. So nobody's really going to pay attention to this. I didn't see this in any of the other news sites that I was looking at. Nobody's going to be paying attention. Why? Because everyone is predominantly writing about the whole money side of this thing. It is what it is, but nonetheless, I think this is arguably a good thing in that it would make for more possible DEXs in the coming future. I do wonder, though, about this whole BSL thing and like what it covered for their particular protocol. Does it in any way relate to Reggie's patent and how his stuff covers the transfer of value or an exchange of value? is this in any way in relation as far as the BSL? So I guess time will tell us. Interesting thing to note that like he seems to still be pushing forward with the lawsuits on like Coinbase and the rest of them, and I guess we'll see what happens if Uniswap ends up on the list sooner than later. And we'll see how it plays out, come April 1st. As far as is anybody going to remember this? I will also throw out that with this happening, two things. One is they still have the ability to be like, oh, you know what? We're not going to let it expire in April. We're going to wait until 2025. They can still do that. The other thing to note is they can make it expire, but then put other kind of conditions on it as when it does meet the time of expiration on April 1st, which then gets into this other thing that I'm wondering about, like, what is it going to look like when we get into after summer, probably in the first Q1 of next year, when we're closer to the halvening, and will we see more dexes pop up because this particular Uniswap v3 protocol is assumingly it will be open source and anybody can use it. So will we see devs popping up a bunch of different dexes as we get closer to the halvening? I don't know. This could be a thing. Again, I'm not a lawyer, a CPA, or financial advisor. I'm just somebody who's been in the space for a minute. And, sometimes you see patterns and trends, and, human beings have a tendency to be greedy. So, yeah. Other than that, I'm going to close it out and say, this is the new stuff that happened. Hopefully something I said, clicks in your head. Hopefully it makes you ask more questions. Hopefully it puts something in context. If not, and you disagree, comments is always open. Other than that, do like, subscribe, and share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Weekend Crypto, I share some stories. I try to put things in context, and hopefully it makes sense to you. If not, comments is open, as I say. So last thing being is, or two things. One, metaverse is the other side. We're getting closer to, closing the gap between the backlog and like the more recent events or recordings. We do record live on Thursdays at 8 p.m. on the Builder DAO Twitter space. So link for that is on the metaverse is the other side videos. You'll see that in the description. And then the other thing is Fridays. So I'd be forgetting to say this, and I didn't realize this till the other day. Oh, there's another thing I needed to say. I'm going to have to jump back to this one last point. Let me jump back to it now before I... All right, I want to show y'all something. In here, you see where it says collect this article as an NFT. So I was, like I said, going through the new stuff, seeing the thing, and then I seen that. I want to tell y'all something. Me and 3D, my co-host for Metaverse is the Other Side, we came up with a concept like this about, what was that, 2021 we did it, or the beginning of, I think it was 2021 we did this. And the basic idea of what they're doing here on Cointelegraph is they are making the article into an NFT. And the way that they say this in the details is you are getting a collectible a digital collectible copy of Cointelegraph's IP. There's a number of questions I have about how it works for them to be able to update the article. Does that mean the contents of your NFT can be changed if they update the source article? One question. Can they stop you from being able to trade, transfer, or move the NFT once you've purchased it? Because this is on Polygon, and they have a bunch of different ways for you to buy this using crypto and using traditional banking rail payments. So there's a couple of questions I have around that, but nonetheless, I seen this. I was instantly annoyed. Why? Because me and 3D came up with an idea that is just like this about capturing news. So the way we did it was we used what is it? The little bears or the three bears as the the front end pop culture icon, where we were talking about Binance, Coinbase, and damn, what was the other bank? Not the bank, but the other centralized exchange. Can't remember the name of it right now. But the point being is we had made the NFT, and then what we did was we took the Wayback Machine, and we were using tiny URLs, and we were taking the articles about things that exchanges had did in the early beginning, like how Coinbase was claiming that they created X, Y, and Z technology, but it was like, no, you didn't. You bought that. You didn't create it from the scratch. You didn't, you know what I'm saying? You didn't do it from the ground up. Or like how Binance had certain investment periods where it wasn't as much to snuff as how they clean the records for now. So we were putting all of that in the metadata, and that you could access that stuff from back then. Um, and it's crazy. Like we got a couple of sales like on, what was that? I think it was on Polygon. We built it on Polygon, Wax, and Tezos. Wax and Polygon were the two that we got the most attention from. It was like a limited number. We only did like 25 per blockchain, and it was one bear each blockchain. We didn't do all three bears on this blockchain. The point being is that we had did this like 2 years ago. No one saw the value in it. And we weren't even charging these numbers. Like, oh, you can't even see what the number is, but it's at $74. And the way that they talk about it in this thing, when like you read the little FAQ part, it's like, well, is this going to be worth something? Well, we're not saying it's going to be worth something, but you know, you could trade it if you want to, or you could sell it on back on the open sea market. Really? Almost comes off like it might be a security. I'm just saying. Nonetheless, I had to share this out here because like I keep saying like hashtag me and 3D, we're not tourists, right? So hashtag we're not tourists. We're not drifters on this thing. So when we talking about like NFT stuff or the metaverse stuff, X amount of the time is because like we try to do something or we're trying to do something. And this is an example of it. Custodial L's was the idea we had about capturing the data or the information, the articles about what exchanges were doing earlier in the days when they first started that you couldn't readily find on the internet now. So just like, well, damn, where did I forgot what it said? It said like capture this moment or something like that. Like that's the stuff that we was trying to do back then, and nobody saw the value. And here they are testing out the model. And I imagine, well, actually, you can see right here, like somebody bought it. Somebody bought it. Anywho, y'all, I'm gonna just close it out on there and say today is Monday. Have a P over B day. That means have a productive over busy day. If it can't be a productive day, at least have it where you are in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. And that's the best thing that I could wish from the bottom or the top of my humanity, right? Other than that, one.